As long as the Germans were winning during the war, they could care less if American prisoners were dying in camp. But as soon as they lost in Africa and were losing in Italy, the camp directors or camp commanders in Germany were given instruction: no more American civilians dying in camp. So they were instructed to send any American ready to die back home. In this particular case, Dad had a kidney removed in 1936. He left home, a clean-shaved gentleman, weighing 184 pounds, and 2.5 years later, he was at 109 pounds. The Germans sent him home. We were all in church on that day when he arrived. And by policy and respect, all chairs of prisoners in the Belgian churches were left unoccupied. It was a way of saying the missing man, if you want to call it that way. This particular day, this old man with a beard, skinny, with old clothes, sat next to Mother. And of course, Mother looked towards the altar and never paid attention, or tried not to pay attention to the son. Looked like a hobo who was sitting next to her. But we youngsters, we were not as polite, and we all looked towards this old fellow and said to ourselves, by the way, I was 15 at the time and the oldest of 9 children, and we were wondering, why on earth did he ever sit down next to Mother? Well, within 30 seconds, Dad shoved his elbow into Mother's ribs and said, are you going to kiss me? And they always talk English among themselves. It was very emotional. And that's the only time that Mother recognized the voice. She recognized her husband. Now, it took quite a few months for Mother to put Dad back on stream, and in August 2nd, on August 2nd, 44, he was caught again by the Germans because he was betrayed by a Spanish woman for helping American airmen escape back to England. That, by the way, was an automatic sentence to death by firing squad. Dad was for 30 days in the infamous prison of Saint-Gilles, Belgium, on death row. However, on September 2nd, the American army was driving into Belgium at a high rate of speed. So the Germans took all the prisoners, there were about 1,500 plus, all condemned to death for having sabotaged the German army. And they put them in what they called the little Belgian boxcars. And for those of you who don't know what a little Belgian boxcar, they are little. On each one of them, it's marked 40 and 8, which means 40 men or 8 horses. In this case, Dad was lucky. There were only 92 prisoners in his boxcar, but some of them were up to 108. And this, by the way, if you look at some of the history channels, if you ever see a title called The Belgian Phantom Train, take the time to look at that. It was the train that Dad was on. As the Americans were, luckily for them, they had 3 engineers, the 3 Belgian engineers, who were all 3 members of the underground. So they did on purpose to literally lose the train here and near Malines. Then they lost the water on the steam engine, and then they finally landed in a cul-de-sac near Brussels, Belgium. At that time, the German guards got really nervous. They knew that the Americans were close, and they ran away. And obviously, the prisoners did not wait 1 second to get out of there and escape. Dad was hid in the forest of Soignes and then walked back to the house, and he literally, and I remember that day very well, literally fell and collapsed on the floor in the kitchen. And he was in very, very bad shape.